So Emily and I have kind of conjured up some scenarios, and she's done a phenomenal job at creating this, what would you say, almost like a script, right? So it may feel a little scripty. We'll try to be as actress as we, I don't think that's
Yeah, this was all written out in a narrative form, right? So that if someone, and maybe Kathy, we can also just provide these scenarios as they were written out in the show notes, right? So if someone wants to absorb it and read
a
it
great idea.
in their own pace and in their own voice, they can do so. But of course, as this translates, if we were just having a conversation, you wouldn't necessarily get the insight for what each of the people were thinking, right? Or could possibly be thinking or motivated by. So the way that we wrote these out was an attempt to just kind of illuminate what could be going on behind the scenes for someone who has some type C tendencies.
Yes. So we have two scenarios. I'll introduce the first one, and Emily can introduce. We're going to set the stage. So the first situation is Jama and Joyce are really good friends. They haven't seen each other in a while, and they decide to make plans to meet up for dinner next week. Jarna excitedly extends the invitation to Joyce. Hey, let's meet for dinner on Wednesday so we can talk more. I'd love to see you in person. Where would you like to meet?
Oh, so I'm Joyce, right? And as Joyce, I'm super excited to catch up too. And what I say is, yes, let's meet up. I love the sushi bar YOLO. Can we go?
Jarna quickly counters, I don't like that place. Let's meet at Joe's American Bar and Grill at 8. See you then.
Oh, I'm Joyce, and I'm feeling slightly resentful, right? I'm slightly resentful because I feel like my requests are being ignored. And yet I respond, sure, I'll see you at 8. Let's go to Joe's. Ooh, so what's happening, Kathy, right now, if you want to talk a little bit about the potential type C tendencies that could be going on inside of Joyce, just to kind of illuminate that as a container for the conversation.
Yes. So type C coping or behavioral patterns have a big people-pleasing component. They want to be liked. They want to avoid conflict. Conflict is very difficult for whatever reason. And so instead, they stuff their feelings and repress. And the idea is thinking, I'm going to avoid that and it will go away. But you and I both know that that actually does not happen. And in fact, subliminally, if left at this point, Jonah would have to jump through this hoop, this resentment hoop that Joyce has created energetically by stuffing this emotion. So often what happens is we get a little bitter, and then that bitterness turns into resentment, and there's a lot of self-talk, like, God, she does this all the time. It's always whatever Jana wants. Or maybe I'm so stupid for not just speaking up. I hate Joe's Bar and Grill. Like, I don't even want to eat there, but forget about it. I'm not going to do anything about it. Whatever. I'll just go.
And so like Jarna doesn't even know, right? Jarna doesn't even know that Joyce is going through this internal process. And I love what that you said is kind of like subject to now having to jump through an energetic hoop that she doesn't even know exists.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's so easy to slide into this victimhood, this inability to speak up and be on our own side almost comes back to us in this form of victimhood to kind of be able to hold our place in the world. But we're gonna change that, because the beautiful thing is these skills were learned, and we can learn new skills to help us respond to life in a different way, especially when it comes to these very important communication and conflict reducing, that's probably not the right word, conflict addressing, like, yes, there's some inner conflict in there. There's some fear of, gosh, is Jarna not going to like me if I do this thing? So let's take it kind of to the next step of using the RISE model.
Yeah. Okay. So just to preface, the RISE model can be used intrapersonally, right? So I can use it as a self-reflection tool to just kind of take my own temperature about things, to get curious about like what is stirring, what are those feelings, to create some self-strategies. So when I think about the acronym reflect, inquire, suggest, elevate, oftentimes when I'm thinking about it from an intrapersonal or a self-evaluation frame, I think of the S as strategize, right? So I am strategizing something that I could use or do in this exact moment. So we're going to run through how the RISE model can be applied to self with Joyce in this situation. And then what it might sound like if it was practiced and employed interpersonally, so between these two friends. So reflect. As Joyce is reflecting on this exchange, what she starts with is just sort of the shared goal that the two of them have of catching up in person. They're both excited about it. And Joyce also has a need for making healthy food choices and to also feel like her voice is heard. So she's kind of thinking about what's the shared goal, but also what do I need personally in this scenario. And so then she starts to think to herself, she's inquiring to self, like, why are these things important to me? And what feelings might arise in me if these needs aren't met, acknowledged, or met? And she wonders about the impact on the evening if they just decide to go to Joe's. And, what is the impact ultimately on the relationship, on their friendship? Is she creating drama or resentment in this space? She also just kind of has a curiosity about, like, why would Jarna choose Joe's? Like, who likes Joe's, right? So she's just, she's got some curiosity about that. So what Joyce does then is to strategize a way to like center their shared goal, which is an in-person meetup that is going to facilitate them really being able to catch up as friends, right? So she's centering that goal while also trying to honor her own needs that she's identified by, she could potentially just offer several alternative dinner spots that might have better or healthier menu options, and that also might have better ambiance, right? Something that is a bit more conducive to just an intimate setting or intimate conversation. So she's thinking, one of the things I could have done instead of just say yes was I could have put a few other options on the table that would have both met my needs and that would have also met our shared goal of a lovely reunion catch-up. And so when we're looking at the elevate level in self-evaluation, what this looks like is that, Joyce is trying to figure out how to fix this exact situation, but ultimately she can also think to the future, right? So if food choices and the need for healthy options is a priority or a need of hers, she could always offer to cook dinner for the two of them. And then she would be in total control of the menu. And also, she could control the ambiance. It could be a very lovely, quiet environment or space for them to be able to catch up. And so after Joyce has done this self-reflection, this self-evaluation with RISE, she feels more centered and she feels like she's ready to re-engage Jarna, and she can reach out to make some adjustments to their plans.
What I love about this idea of this intra reflection, specifically for any human, but for a type C person, to take the time to connect with how I feel, to honor and identify my own needs. It really is a practice to separate yourself from this other person and realize you have value and you have needs and desires just like that other person, and you have every right to have those met. So I think that in itself might be the practice, right? That you come away from this conversation with, is that you can have this conversation in your brain or in a journal. In fact, you should have a RISE journal.
Yeah. Whoa.
A RISE
making a note for the future.
Just to go, because that process is really helpful to help somebody reconnect with themselves. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to take it to that next step and bring RISE into the interpersonal.
Here we go. So, now Joyce is ready to reach back out to Jarna in a way that is accommodating of what she needs out of the situation. So I think when we were talking about this scenario, Kathy, we imagined it like maybe it was a text message thread that they were going through, right? So imagine now that Joyce is about to text Jarna and she says, hey, I've been rethinking our plan for dinner next week. We don't get to see each other that often in person. And I don't feel like the atmosphere at Joe's will let us catch up properly. Plus, the menu is kind of limited, and I'm really trying to make healthier food choices right now. Was there a particular reason why you wanted to go to Joe's? Is it because it's a mutually convenient location? She says, here are 3 alternatives that are quite close and that are quiet and that have more diverse menus. I'd be happy with any of these. So let me know which one of these sounds good to you, Jarna. And so if none of these work, I'd just be happy going for a walk together. Quality time with you is what I am most looking forward to.
Dang, it makes me almost cry.
So let me just tease out the reflect part was, I'm thinking, I'm centering our goal, but I'm also acknowledging and prioritizing my needs. The inquire was where I got curious about why you suggested Joe's. The suggestion was when I said, hey, if you are looking for something that's close, here are 3 options that I'd be happy to go to. The menu is diverse, and I know that we'll be able to catch up. And if all that fails in this moment, the idea for expansion in this moment is like, we could just go for a walk. We could totally take the restaurant and the food obstacles out of the equation, because ultimately what we want is just to be together.
It's ultimately what everybody wants, right? A deeper connection with each other. And there's so much power in that, because at every one of those, the reflect, inquire, suggest, elevate, they're all opening. There's this practice that I learned. It's like a meditation practice that talks about having a strong back and a soft front. And animals, our spine is our strongest thing, but animals will open themselves up while still in their strong spine. And I feel like having had that intrapersonal conversation with herself gave her that strong spine so that she could have a soft front, which is so inviting to another human, versus that hunkered down fight, like, covering our soft part so that we can fight what's in front of us, which is a lose-lose. This is a win-win.
The other thing about Joyce really stuffing her feelings here is that, she doesn't give Jarna the opportunity to support her.
Mm.
And in this scenario, Jarna's her friend. We've established that they're super excited to see each other. And so in a way, it really closes Joyce off to being fully known by her really good friend.
Yeah, the hardest thing I learned about my type C tendencies were that they made me untrustworthy.
Yeah, you brought that up in another conversation, and I've been thinking about that quite a lot.
And that you described that beautifully.
Yeah.
If you don't speak up and ask for and honor and even be able to identify your own needs, then another human that's trying to be in connection with you, you're kind of a risky move.
Mm-hmm.
But this RISE process and framework allows you to build that power back up, because it really is it's learned. We can learn it. We can unlearn the skill set that we came into adulthood with, and we can relearn and elevate our ability to communicate with another human. That was beautiful.
And it's really so much just about practice, Kathy, of hearing about a process and then choosing to engage it, even if it feels kind of awkward and clumsy at first. Why can't we just talk? Why do we need to, number one, reflect, number two, inquire? It's because it sets the stage, right, to go deeper together. And that process offers guidelines, and guidelines offer safety, which allow us to be near vulnerable. Yeah.
The next step to this, you did not add this, but I'm going to just lob this in because I think it's so powerful. Rick Hanson's work about neuroplasticity. So what I would do with a client if we went through this scenario and Joyce came to me and said, I had such a beautiful success. I actually was able to go back to Jarna and tell her how I really felt. I used this RISE model and I offered suggestions, and we're actually just going to go for a walk, and then we're coming to my house for dinner. I would have her hold this new beautiful way of being, sense stretch herself in that for just 90 seconds. And then if it felt safe, to bring up an old scenario where that did not happen, where she felt shut down, was not able to express herself, became resentful, and keep that scenario kind of over her back, her right shoulder. If it ever got louder than her feeling state, then let it go. But the idea is to bring it up and then marry the two. I use a kind of a golden river to connect the two, this feeling of what it feels like to be on my own side, to speak up, to identify and honor my own needs. And then almost like you're going back to a younger version of you and saying, it's okay, it can be different now. And then let that go. And then in the next hour, every 15 minutes, just bring up this sense of wow, Jarna and I are going to dinner next week. I'm super excited. Or I spoke up for myself and I got what I needed. Because what happens in that hour is called the window of what's it called? The window of consolidation. So it's our brain is trying to take that old memory and refile it. But we're disrupting the consolidation of that old memory. And if you continue to do that, you're rewiring your brain. It's neuropath. You're creating a new neuropath so that next time this scenario comes up where somebody's like, hey, I'll meet you at Joe's for dinner. Your brain a different path to take, it's like, oh no, I don't want to go there. And you kind of, again, it's that practice, but this window of consolidation is an opportunity to really kind of create that foundation for your future. So I just wanted to
I think about the word internalize as I hear you kind of describe that process.
Yes. And it's so important because these positive feelings are often so fleeting. You know, the negative ones are super sticky. We can all remember when we were shitheads. Like, just ask away. I can give you 20 examples, but the other ones are a little less sticky. But so it takes, like you said, it takes practice to make them sticky, and having a framework to support us in that practice is so powerful.